if you want to connect with your daughter, don't ask her what she's interested in. Notice what she's interested in, and then ask her details about that.
You're listening to the Connected Parenting Minute with Will and CarrieAnn Standfest. This podcast is a conversation about parenting, using connection first, trauma-informed principles. Because when you lead with connection, everyone feels seen, which is the foundation to a more peaceful home. This podcast reminds you that you don't have to be a perfect parent, but we can all get a little better, one connected parenting minute at a time.
Hello, and welcome back to the Connected Parenting Minute. My name is Will Standfest, and with me this evening is the lovely CarrieAnn Standfest.
Hello, friends.
We are so glad that you're taking a few minutes out of your day to join us today. And we typically have kind of three main points we like to talk through some teaching principles and some things we've learned recently. And today we're going to mix it up a little bit.
We're going to mix it up a little bit. Why would that be, Will?
We just got back from the Replanted Conference in Chicago this past weekend.
That's true. And when we say we just got back, we literally drove home and probably got in about, 4 hours ago, 5 hours ago.
Something like that.
Math is hard.
We had to carve some pumpkins and do some homework and then put kids to bed in a hurry.
That was a whole thing. But yeah, we had such a great time at the conference. And we thought it'd be worth it to just take the opportunity to talk through some of our experience and share and encourage our listeners and, walk through some of the stories that we got to experience there because we got to speak too, which was really good. I mean, we did a combined topic on teenagers.
Yep. Connecting with your teens from eye rolls to real conversations.
Yeah, that was fun. And then Will actually also got to talk with another dad.
Yeah, with Chris Turner from the Empowered Parent podcast, known as The Involved Dad.
Right. And they had an amazing turnout for a talk on for dads.
Yeah, it was a calling all dads. So it was just two dads that are adoptive and foster parents talking to other dads that are going through the same thing. And I mean, we had like 80 or 90 people in that room and it was full of guys and we had Chris got real vulnerable. I shared some stuff that's going on and I think it really connected with people out there.
There's an aspect to that community. I got some pictures and then I hightailed it out of there because I was getting some looks and I was literally the only female in the room. And I'm like, oh, I want to support you guys, but I'm leaving now.
She was our publicist for anybody tuning in. She just taking some photos and ducking out.
Right. And apparently doing the lights for a little part, but I just get dragged into that stuff. It's fine. I look like I'm useful in that way.
So either way, we came away from this conference really encouraged and really inspired. And we just wanted to kind of unpack and talk through some of the things that were just really encouraging to us this weekend and share that with you guys out there.
Right. Well, can you set the stage for us a little bit? What is this conference and how many people were there and stuff like that?
So the Replanted Conference has been going on, I believe, for like 12 years in Chicago. And they starts on a Thursday night with a mixer, which is super fun. Which sounds awkward. Like I get you. Like I can hear a half of you cringing right now, but it's not. It's actually pretty fun. We've done it both years. We went last year and this year. And it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours of kind of like wandering around. They have sparkling juice. They have funny photo booths. They had a golf simulator last year. They had a 360 degree photo thing where like this iPad would spin around you and take this 360 degree photo. I saw a handful of them. They were pretty cool, actually.
It scared me a little.
But it's fun. Like they got music and they've got snacks and then they have intentional things to like go around and like you're trying to find somebody who's fostered 20 kids so you can have them stamp your thing. And then you're trying to find somebody who's a licensed social worker so they can stamp your thing. So you end up talking to a bunch of people and having little conversations. And then again, it's one of these things where when you start talking to other parents that have experienced things that you have, all of a sudden you're like, oh, you've done this before? Oh, yeah, I've got a kid at home that's struggling with that too. And
it forms a connection.
It does. It's a good excuse to get these conversations happening. And then at the end of the night, they kind of like gather all your little sheets that you've been filling out all night and then they use it to draw prizes. All weekend.
Yeah, that was really cool. I think like the grand prize was something extravagant, a trip or something like that.
It was a 4-night stay in Arizona with airfare.
Right.
Like a big prize.
Exactly. And the whole premise too of the weekend is they really want to encourage and help foster and adoptive families feel seen, because it can be a very challenging, but also thankless job.
It's very isolating.
It can
honestly.
be, yeah.
I mean, I can say that from our own experience.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the majority of our experience was in the midst of COVID, where everybody was feeling isolated.
Very true.
But there was a different level on top of that, besides just, I can't go to work and we're at home afraid. Like, plus there's this stuff going on at home.
Right.
That I can't completely share with people,
mm-hmm.
but it's really hard.
Right.
And being around other parents that have that same kind of, there's this thing going on at home that I can't really talk about, but
it's still a thing, right?
Right. And it bothers you.
Yeah.
And just feeling seen in that way is huge.
It is huge. And they really spend the whole weekend trying to pamper these parents. And so they do all these like no way gifts, just the mentality of like, no way, someone like gave this to me. And they have massages and they have haircuts. And
which you got a massage this weekend.
I did. I got to be someone else for the weekend briefly, because they were like, I can't make my massage, so you take it. I'm like, okay.
It was what I like. The sentence was
like
barely out of her mouth, and CarrieAnn was gone. I was like, oh, I'll go grab lunch for you.
Yep. There was no question. That was something I wanted to do, but I couldn't.
But it was good.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
And they had the standard conference stuff. They had speakers and they had lunch mixers, and it was cool. They did something that I haven't seen done before, where in the evening, in order to again encourage more connections and get these families talking, they went and made reservations, like a reservation for like 8 or 10 people at like 6 or 7 local restaurants,
mm-hmm.
and just had people go sign up.
Yeah.
If you want to meet some people, here you go. Sign your 2 names up for this place, and whoever else signs up, the 8 of you are now going to dinner together.
Right.
And I heard some stories out of that. My one friend told me they had, I forget what it was. There was like 10 or 12 people at the table. They figured among them, they cared for almost 300 children.
That's incredible.
And the one gal just talked and shared some of the things she's experienced. He's like, we were crying. We were laughing. There were so many stories that people are like, oh my gosh, I've gone through that too.
Wow. What a time for connection though, really.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was really, really good. And so it was inspiring to hear stories like that all weekend.
Right. And what I don't remember off the top of my head how many people were there. I mean, I know it was a really large group. Do you remember hearing the number?
It was around 600 or so.
Okay.
I think there was a little more than that registered, but about 600 showed up this time.
Okay. No, that's great. Well, we wanted to share a couple of stories. I mean, we've been sharing little bits here and there, but some of the things that really impacted me, and just this mentality that, when you show up and you're present someplace, you get to see like amazing things happen. And so there was this one situation, and it literally made me cry, because they did all these, these drawings for gifts, and they, just threw beach balls in the crowd, and they caught stuff. And well, I think they at the last minute decided to give away an iPad. And I don't think that was in the plans from reading behind the scenes. But so they pulled out one of the sheets from that first night, and they're like, oh, I don't know, George. I don't remember what his name is.
I don't know what his name was.
And it doesn't matter. But like, is George here, And it was kind of quiet for a while. And he's like, okay. And then you hear someone in the back go, I know him. Normally they just go, okay, go back in the back and we'll get it to you. And this lady comes up. And he's like, well, how many people know George here? Just kind of like.
He was making light of it.
Yeah.
Curry's a good host.
Yeah. And so she like goes all the way up the front stage and is kind of like, ooh, what's going to happen? And she goes up and she goes, this is such a gift. And he's like, okay. And this lady was like, last week I left my grandchild's iPad on top of the car, and it fell off and got run over by another car. And you just have no idea what this means to me. And like, literally, I was crying. I was like, oh my gosh, like just to see that and to see how that story played out. And we got to share that later kind of in this, and some of the volunteers and the speakers got together for dinner. And it was just like, wow, that was such a thing. You cannot plan for that.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
You can't plan for that at all.
It was a beautiful moment.
We've had such a great fall traveling and speaking at conferences. We're excited to announce our first conference of 2025. Join us at the Conference in Kansas City, February 21st through 22nd, again in 2025. Join us for real encouragement for foster and adoptive parents. Registration can be found at realencouragement.org. That's realencouragement.org. And if you're interested in having us speak at your event, contact us at info@connectedparentingminute.com. We'd be happy to work with you.
And now back to the show. Some of the other things that were really neat, we had, like we said, we did 2 breakout sessions. I did one with Chris, and it was fun because we were talking about how dads can be more involved with their kiddos. And it's so easy for dads to get a bad rap of being kind of aloof or being just, I'm going to go out and work and whatever. But these dads were really involved. They were really into the session, and they had some good questions. And I was actually going to bring one of them up. I had a dad ask me after the session, because Chris only has boys and we have 5 boys and 3 girls. And so a lot of our examples about play and the importance of that with your children revolved around playing with your boys.
Right.
And he's like, I've got daughters. What do I do? And I was like, I've got 3 daughters. I should have said that during the talk. And so I gave him suggestions in the moment. But then afterwards, we were just talking to our 15-year-old daughter a minute ago. And I said, hey, this dad was saying this. What would you say to him? And she had a really good insight. I really appreciated it. My 15-year-old daughter said that if you want to connect with your daughter, don't ask her what she's interested in. Notice what she's interested in, and then ask her details about that.
Oh, that is knowing our daughter, I'm not surprised that she would say that, but that is such an insight that I don't think a lot of people would catch.
That was deep. Like she said that, and I was like, I need to write this down. That was good.
Right?
I mean, how much more seen does your kid feel when, rather than saying, what happened at school today? Nothing. Okay. You're like, hey, how was math class today? I know it's been really hard for you lately. Or how was soccer practice this afternoon? I know Joe's been giving you a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
How much more instantly seen does your child feel when you're asking those more direct, more specific questions?
Because you know something about them.
Because you know what's going on.
Right.
Being the world's best detective of your kiddos, being the one who knows them the best is really just a huge key to this connection with our kiddos.
Right. And I always think, because I feel like I constantly have things flying at me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't retain information super well, which is funny because I have 8 kids, or we have 8 kids, and there's a lot of things happening, but use cheat sheets.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know that I do. There's an element where I go, I don't know if I'm going to remember that, but I want to remember that. So I'm going to write it down.
Literally making a cheat sheet for your kiddo.
Mm-hmm.
We all have smartphones. You can take a voice note. You can get the little ChatGPT note and say, hey, by the way, ChatGPT, remind me that Timmy doesn't like pepperoni on his pizza.
Right. Okay. So we might have, and that might be a thing in our house. Will is really, really great about knowing what our kids like and don't like for food. But I tend to be a little bit more along the lines of, if you try it 8 million times, maybe your taste buds will change.
You want to know why that is?
Why?
Because of the way we grew up.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true.
Right? I mean, I grew up, I will admit, I was a picky eater.
Uh-huh.
To me, it's super important that, no, you're a picky eater too. Your choices are valid. I need to validate those and see those and accommodate for them. Whereas knowing your parents, it was more like, listen here, I'm buying soft tacos and you can deal with it.
Either you want soft tacos or you don't. That's the amount of your choices that you have.
You can go hungry. That's a choice you can make.
And granted, we were not, it was like 49-cent tacos. You can have 2, but there was a lot of us. And so that was the option. But yeah, that tends to rub off on me. I do start to remember, and I've been starting to keep track of things that people don't like. But sometimes I'm like, why don't you just try it again? Just to make sure you still don't like it.
Well, there is some truth to that too. Like your taste buds do mature as you grow older. So I'm not here to throw you under the bus.
Oh, no, I don't feel like that at all. But yeah, it's kind of funny to think about.
But that's a practical tip for parents out there. If you've got a bunch of kiddos and you're struggling to remember the details and it matters to you, figure out a way that works for you to take notes on it.
Yeah.
Things that they're into. Take notes on the names of the goofballs at school that they either like or don't like. so that you can ask good questions next week.
Yeah, I need to start doing that.
Right?
No, it's a great idea.
But again, like our daughter was saying, asking specific questions about the thing that you know that they are into is so much more impactful than just saying, what are you into? What do you like? Because the second part of what she said there, first part is notice what she's into and ask her good questions about that. But the second part about it is the flip side is when you ask, well, what are you interested? What are you into? She says what she hears in that is you're not paying attention to me.
Oh,
you're not even noticing.
Yeah. There's an element where we're like, well, my teen is, or my kid is into so many things and I can't keep track of everything. And I mean, there's an element of truth to that, right? We have to pay the bills, do the job, cook the meals, all these things. But when you can figure out ways to notice those things about your kids. I mean, for personal experience, when someone notices something about me, it says a lot.
It does.
When you notice things about me, I feel seen and I feel like cared about. And that's valuable. So why wouldn't our kids feel the same way?
Yeah. Isn't that weird? It's like our kids are people too.
Right? Oh my goodness. So getting back to the conference a little bit, because we're kind of going off on a tangent. We're just trying some different things out. We'll talk about it too. You'll hear more because we actually got to do 2 really great interviews. It was supposed to be 3, but we kind of had some technical issues. We did 2 really great interviews and those are going to be coming up on the podcast too. And we're excited to share those. But we just wanted to unpack the conference first.
Yeah, please.
One of the other aspects of being at the conference was there were so many things I would go into because, we did some sessions, but then we also listened to other sessions. And the thing that struck me is that we would go to a session anticipating hearing one thing and come out with something completely different. Because there was like a lot of main stage sessions. And sometimes I was like, oh, I don't know who this person is or whatever. But, they started talking about something and it wasn't what I was expecting. And this sounds dumb. Like I learned something and I love learning, right? Don't get me wrong. I love learning from people. I love learning new things. I love learning about the brain and about child development and all these pieces, but it wasn't stuff that I expected to learn at this conference.
Yeah.
So in this specific example, we were hearing a birth mom tell her story about how she came to the point where she decided that adoption was the best option going forward for her child. And there was a lot to unpack in that story. And I thought she was incredibly brave and incredibly vulnerable in coming up and sharing about this.
Absolutely.
I actually tracked her down afterward and talked to her for a little while. But one of the things she was talking about really started making me think about, and she talked a lot about her worthiness, just feeling unworthy in a lot of things. And it's interesting because for me personally, there's a lot, we're doing a lot of things. I'm juggling a lot of balls and there's things that I want to do, but I don't feel that worthy piece because I'm like, who am I to be saying those things? Or who am I to be teaching people? Or who am I to be trying to help others learn things that I think are valuable? But I walked out of there and I'm like, wow, okay, this is totally that moment where you go, yeah, I don't feel it, but I know that it's true. And so I need to keep going forward with it. So it'll be interesting to see what the next couple months brings with that. Hopefully I can hold on to that piece because I wrestle with that on and off. I get home and I'm like, oh, wow, there's 8 billion things to take care of at home. How on earth am I going to do anything else?
Right. Well, the busyness is easy to distract us.
It absolutely is. But the busyness is a thing too, right? There's all the kids.
Right.
And those are the things that we're doing. And so the extra is extra. I could talk circular about this all night, but it was just very interesting to me. So the thing that I took out of that was this concept that you can go in thinking you'll learn one thing and come out with something totally different. And that's really a sweet place to be.
Well, and that's beautiful because even Beth Guggenheim, I butchered her last name, Guggenheimer, or whatever it is. Beth, who opened the conference up, even talked about that. She talked about how she's done a bunch of speaking engagements all over the place. She's written some books, and she said people come up to her after the conference and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you spoke to identity in that speech this morning. That's exactly what I needed to hear." And she's like, "I didn't say anything about identity." And she's like, "Or I'm so glad you talked about anxiety. I just needed that so much." I wasn't talking about anxiety, but it's still good. Like
Right.
that's those messages sinking into our hearts and really connecting to us in an important place. It matters. And it's something that we need.
Mm-hmm. All right. So we've been talking about this concept of, this conference and kind of unpacking it a little bit with you. But really, I think the message that we want our listeners to hear, especially our listeners who are parenting those kiddos that are either have been fostered or adopted or neurodivergent kids, because that's a huge piece too, is that taking the time to invest in something for yourself and getting a chance to learn from other people, find community, take some time away is really valuable.
And it's hard. Like, let's be honest, it's a struggle.
Yes.
It can be expensive. It can be stressful. It can be time consuming.
Well, and talk about the stress. It's like, all I could think was, we have all these things to do before to get ready, and then all these things to think about while we're gone. And then when we came back, I was like, all right, this is going to be great. And everything was falling apart. So, we had kids who had to do homework last minute before tomorrow. And, the pool was full of leaves and totally first world problems, mind you, but just things that have piled up because we took some time to do something else.
Yeah. As much as we were there to speak, it was also rejuvenating and refreshing for us as well.
For sure. I mean, we met some awesome people, and it was really good just to be in community with others.
For me, that was the biggest thing I took out of the weekend, is just remembering there are a lot of other people that are in this with us.
Mm-hmm.
The number of parenting struggles that I have that no one else on this earth has ever had is probably zero.
Exactly.
There is probably somebody else out there who has gone through this and understands that. And if I can have the courage and the vulnerability to step up and reach out, that I can connect with somebody who understands. And that can be just deeply healing.
For sure.
So this is our encouragement to you today, is that take some time for yourself. If you can get away to a conference, go for it. If you can just get a night or two away from the kids and reconnect with your spouse or your partner, do that. And if you're a single mom or dad, reach out to us. We will watch your kids.
Be careful.
The encouragement is that you are worth it, and the time away is deeply healing and encouraging, and make the effort. It's really worth it.
Agreed.
Like CarrieAnn said, we've got 2 more interview episodes coming up from the conference. You'll be hearing from Meredith Schumann of James Trail. She'll be talking more about community, and we'll be talking to Sandra Flack, who is one of the foremost experts in FASD, which is fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, which was a fascinating conversation about the brain and all these other things. So stay tuned for those upcoming episodes. As always, if you've liked or enjoyed or gotten value out of this podcast, please leave us a review. Please tell your friends. And before we go, we want to remind you,
You don't have to be a perfect parent,
but we can all get a little bit better, one Connected Parenting Minute at a time.
Thank you so much for listening to my mom and dad's podcast. It means a lot to me. Make sure to like and subscribe on the way out.
For more parenting tips or to connect with us, check out the Connected Parenting Minute on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Or you can send us an email using connectedparentingminute@gmail.com.